Welcome, welcome, welcome. What a day. What a day today. We are definitely going to, looks like Sandman's having a couple issues with his mic. We'll get it set up. But wanted to just shout out to everybody today. Thanks for being here. We got some great folks in the chat. And I don't think I really need to, what's the word, make any introduction since we all know who Sandman is. And without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and add Sandman into the stream.
Okay, can you hear me?
I can hear you good. Good to have you, Sandman.
Sounds good. So what's going on?
Well, you know what? I wanted to start off basically because, 8 years ago, I came across you, Big John, TFM, Barbarossa. And, you've had a great following. You've got some great content. I really enjoyed the clips, and I figured, you know what? Let's have a discussion, everything red pill, a candid discussion based on where Sandman has been since 2015 to where Sandman has been till today, and what you've seen over the years, what you've seen from the red pill back then versus where it is today, and so forth. So, anyhow, welcome. Thanks for being here.
Yeah, no problem. So before I get into like the past and, going back the last 7, 8, 9, 10 years, I'm kind of seeing everything kind of mesh together in the last 3 or 4 months with technology. And it's kind of weird. We're heading into this really weird period of time where a lot of interesting things are about to start happening, and they are happening. Let's say the last 4 months. So we had ChatGPT come out in November, like October, November.
Right.
A few weeks ago, there were pictures of artificially created women in bikinis. You must have seen that.
Sure.
Then just like the last 3 or 4 days, we had TikTok put on the teenage filter. So it's actually allowing, 60-year-old women to look 16 again. And on top of that, there was one other thing. I can't remember exactly what it was, but it was also, it was the technology to take voice and anyone's voice, put it in a website. I haven't found the website that does it yet, but I'll probably find it. And it can basically spit out conversations between Joe Rogan and Elon Musk, or Joe Rogan and Jordan Peterson. So we're quickly heading to this point where, right now the images are being created of these artificial women. What happens when you can create full artificial women in video? You can add a artificial voice. You can, put on a teenage filter if it's an older woman that wants to kind of project herself, and then using ChatGPT to generate the user content.
Right.
So it'll have a conversation with you. It will look like a real woman. It'll be generated. It will, it's going to basically be, we're almost there. Like, someone just has to put all these technologies together, probably within the next year, maybe 2 years, and you're going to have a completely 100% AI generated person that you can talk to.
Right.
So then you got to ask yourself, like, what are the implications of that? Well, you can project. Imagine now you take that artificially generated person that you're generating in real time. You're not generating them and putting them on a video. They're being generated in real time. Then you can project them on a doll. So the doll looks real. You can interact with the doll. So there's sensors in the doll. So now we're almost at the level where that virtual sex system that I've been talking about for years is there. And that will change the game entirely, because then, men are going to start to realize, like, what's the difference between talking to a real woman or being with this artificial thing? And they're going to realize there aren't that many differences, right? So anyway, that's just my point. I've kind all this kind of clicked together the last couple of days, and I just kind of wanted to bring it up before it's gone.
No, I appreciate that. I mean, we're seeing just what's coming down the pipe in the next 18 months. I can't imagine where we will be as a world, especially with ChatGPT. I just did a chat. I just chatted with it yesterday about genders, and there is so much liberal bias in that ChatGPT. I got my comment flagged through ChatGPT. So it's crazy where we're at. So I wanted to say something. I watched one of your videos, Sandman, about if we're ever going back to the traditional way. And this has been brought up. It's probably been brought up on your channel. It's been brought up on other channels. Hey, Rad, do you ever think it's going to go back to the traditional way of life? If there's a world war, or if there's a gigantic pandemic, or if there's an EMP attack, are we ever going back? And I've thought about this, and my answer is no. We're never going back to where it was. The programming is already set in stone. Regardless if there's some giant catastrophe, we're never going back to the traditional way of life, to where the woman was a co-pilot and so forth. So, and you bringing the piece up about technology, I mean, geez, doesn't that even further this out even more, that we've been at a point of no return for years. What say you?
What do you mean co-pilot? I see them more as like the gremlin on the wing, and you're William Shatner looking out the window as your like life is going down in flames, right?
I'm saying, yeah, back in the day when the man was the pilot and the woman was a submissive co-pilot in the kitchen and so forth.
Yeah. No, it never was that way. Like, I mean, go back through history and you'll notice that women would basically subvert all the resources and like wealth to get all like the lavish lap of luxury that they wanted to live in.
Sure. Female nature has always appeared throughout generations of time, right? And even knowing female nature, it is a gift when you can understand women versus trying to chase them, trying to capture them, and trying to make them love you. But when you really truly understand female nature, you can have a terrific life.
Yeah, exactly.
You can move forward. And I think that's what these channels are trying to do, telling guys, look, we're just exposing what is naturally inherent in both ourselves as well as them. Let's pick a life that's going to keep us out of those shark infested waters.
Yeah, but the thing is, civilization doesn't really have a future if we do that, unless we start implementing other types of technology that will allow us to reproduce. And like I said, traditionalism is dead. This feminist way of life can only last, this gynocracy that we're living in can only last for so long.
Right.
We're going to have to try something new. And the problem is most people don't want to try something new, because trying something new requires rethinking and reshaping society. And that's a lot of work, right? Like you got to experiment. You got to try different things, see what works, different countries, and eventually you'll come up with the formula that you can kind of apply to everywhere. But people are just, they're afraid of change. So the change that they're most willing to accept is the change that takes them back in time when it was a simpler time, because that's just kind of the nostalgia that they feel for a past they never really even lived in. Like, let's get real. Like, say you're 80 years old today. Like you basically were around in, the 60s, 70s as a, 20 or 30 something. But the majority of people today don't remember those days.
Right.
Let's say the majority of people go back 40 years. That's 1983.
Right.
So, and that was the heyday of divorce.
Right.
So, yeah. So let's say, like 60, 70% of the world today does not remember those days.
Well, you're absolutely right. I mean, in the last 80 years, what has transcended from where we've come from? I mean, electricity started getting big in the late 30s, early 40s. I mean, it's crazy what we witnessed. So, appreciate those comments. I wanted to ask you, when you made your first video back when, why did you do it? How did you do it? What prompted you to make your very first video? Because you're a heavyweight in this in the world we live in. You've helped a lot of guys. How did you start?
Oh, I just consumed a lot of MGTOW content, and then I realized there's no more. Like people would, content producers back then, like Barbarossa hadn't been producing very much. He was maybe making a video every month or two, and then Stardust was around, the Thinking Ape, and he was making a video maybe every 3 weeks, 4 weeks, and he was getting out of the game. Raging Golden Eagle had just started, and Spetsnaz had started putting out a video every couple weeks. So there really wasn't very much content in the manosphere. Like the manosphere was mostly, like a voice for men and their website, and
Right.
Paul Elam, and, Karen Strawn, or Girl Writes What, she was putting out a video every few months. But by that point, it was late 2013. She'd stopped doing it as readily. So like really there was this huge gap in terms of the amount of content that was out there and the quality of the content and what was being provided. Nobody was producing the content, and I wanted more content. So I was like, well, if the only way I'm going to get more content is if I make it myself, right?
Sure.
So I started making it, and then I started scouring the internet for content and the ideas, because that was the biggest thing. Like, coming up with new topics was a really big thing. Today, it's like you turn on Twitter and there's like 20 things going on, and you can just like tap into. But back then, like, you have to remember, like, like there was no discussion, or if the discussion was there, it was maybe like 20 or 30 guys talking about something.
Right.
So you really had to work at coming up with content.
Who did you listen to back in the day? Like, who would you consider your favorite
Well, I
creators?
listened to everybody, right? Like, I was influenced by Paul Elam, and I was influenced by Karen Strawn and Stardust. Stardust pretty much like red pilled me, which is kind of funny because he absolutely hates me. So, and like a few weeks ago, he made a video talking about the mainstreamification of the manosphere, and he basically wouldn't mention my name, but he pretty much alluded to me being responsible for it.
Yeah.
So, I was the one that first showed that you could actually make a profitable, long-term viable YouTube channel talking about like men's issues that
Right.
could do daily content. And once I proved that works, that was like, let's say late 2014, early 2015, then you started to see other people see like, oh wait, like I can talk about this and pay my bills. And then that's when you saw the explosion in content, 2015, 16,
Right.
17.
Right.
So it wasn't until that point, like, I had to basically be the catalyst to get all of these things to kind of move forward.
Right. No, back then there was, I would say, a handful of creators. I mean, I listened to Big John, he's the one that red pilled me, right? I mean, I found, and most guys find these channels by how they can save their marriage, how they can save their girlfriend from leaving, and so forth. And they stumble across. I was going through a divorce at my time, and I found Big John, and I started reading the comments and listening. Damn, this is exactly how I feel. These guys are just like me. There's something to it. You popped up, TFM popped up, Paul Proteus, and all those guys. So, but today, the monetization, and I keep telling guys, put a channel out there. You don't know who you're going to help. We all, even in this chat right now, we've got some terrific content creators. One Fast Stack, 5 Years of Freedom, Slam Cave, and they all listen to everybody. So, what's your thoughts on this? Women jumping into the to the manosphere and speaking of some of these points. So we've got real
Well,
fem sapium and a couple others.
well, look, women have always like kind of been here, but the women that were here before, like Karen Strawn and what's her name? Janice Fiamengo is a professor in Ottawa, as well as who am I? Like the Honey Badgers. Like, if like
Yeah.
they weren't making money, they were doing it because they were basically getting, they were actually making a difference, right? So it was a bit, well, they were getting attention too, but it was more of like trying to make an impact and trying to like prevent feminism from destroying things,
Right.
because they could see the writing on the wall that this system that was being created was not sustainable. And they were talking about that, like, well, we can't keep doing this. We can't keep acting, can't keep treating men like this, because eventually bad things will happen and we will suffer for it, right? And so they were kind of seeing that. But now it's just a grift. Like let's
Yes.
not forget about it. They're just going in there. Their algorithm is promoting them because they're women, and like, it's demoting us, but it's promoting them. So if you're a minority or a woman, you get promoted. If you're not, you get demoted, and that's just the way it goes. So like, look, there's always this YouTube kind of euphoria that happens in the first 6 months to a year of a channel, and then it slowly declines and starts to wane.
Yeah.
So, the game back in the day was different. You could build a channel from 2013 steadily for the next 5, 6, 7 years, and it would keep rising in views and attention.
Right.
Now there's just too much competition. Channels get throttled down after like 3, 4 months, 5 months of success. And then, so you got to win the lottery to become successful for 6 months, and then you start going down. Like, look at the Real Femme Sapien. I can't remember the other one. Not just Pearly Things. There were a couple other ones, and you're already starting to see them kind of start to slowly roll over and drop in views.
Right.
But they're influential. You know, they've got a lot of power, but they're only taking men about 90% of the way there. They're, you know, we got to get them to the other 10%, and we're being, you know, snuffed out. But it's enough to get men 90% of the way there, so they can start to realize, you know, the truth, the last 10% on their own for the most part.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I mean, it's just a lot of this is repackaged information. I tend to listen to creators that have been in my experience or actually have an idea of what it's like to go through a divorce. There's so many different content creators that bring a different you know, perspective, especially some of these young guys. And it's great to hear all sorts of stories and experiences from, you know, from so many different people. So you've been throttled, and
Yeah,
over,
like just let's just say in the last 6 months, my views per pretty much 10 to 15,000 per video. Now I'm down to like 6 to 7 to 8,
yeah,
right? On YouTube. I mean, I'm slowly branching out on other platforms. Like I've like my BitChute views are pretty stable. My views, like I'm growing on what do you call it? On Rumble. So
Rumble,
I'm gaining about 10 subscribers a day, which is, I mean, it's pathetic, but it's still something. Right? So, you know, you can't do what you used to do with this kind of stuff, because again, there's also more competition, right? So you got to compete with a lot of people, and people are getting content out there immediately. And on top of that, guys don't want to hear, you know, a complicated tale about technology and how it's going to impact things a year or two down the road. They want to hear like current event and how women are suffering. Like always, it's like women are suffering in the title, and it's like, oh, the guys will come to hear this tale of suffering.
right?
So, you know, I mean, I'm doing a new segment I started about, you know, a few weeks ago called Memes of the Week.
Yeah,
People like that. They're actually liking that. But on YouTube, that's been heavily throttled. Like for that, for whatever reason, they don't like that. So, you know, the first couple videos were doing okay, and then after that, they throttled it.
yeah. I think there's going to be a time when all of these creators, it's again, it's ebb and flow, right? You come up, you come down. Some will go, some will come in, and it'll just continue. But definitely, in today's world, this message seems to be growing. People have asked me, and they might have asked you this as well. What's the percentage, Rad, of the guys out there that have been red pill? It's growing. It's growing. People, more and more men are coming to this. And I would say, sure, more and more are finding out, and more are returning back to the plantation as well. What are your thoughts?
I mean, look what happened to Human, right? Somebody was telling me a few weeks ago, so, oh, Human's gone back to the plantation. I'm like, what? So I go over to his YouTube channel, and he's talking about how, you know, he's not saying that guys are cowards for not dating, but he's saying that, like, you know, you just got to give it a try. You know, you got to go back and I'm like, that's not the Human I remember from like 3, 4 years ago.
Yeah,
Like, what's going on? And he wasn't the only one. They mentioned a few other people. I can't really remember who they were off by heart. But guys, you know, they have their relapse and they break down and then they go back. So look, you're right. You can ebb and flow and back and forth. I mean, I haven't really had any relapses since 2015 at this point,
right,
right? So I don't care. I've been done for the longest time. I've got other passions that I can pursue. But a lot of guys, they can't help themselves, you know. So you gotta be aware that it can sneak up on you at any time, and you're not even going to realize it because, you know, your brain is wired to fall for the trap.
right. And you know, some guys they just can't get through that loneliness piece, and this is probably the hardest red pill, is to know when you know this information and when you see and you can navigate life by understanding female nature, it can be very dark for quite some time. And then once you get over that, hopefully you've slayed that loneliness factor. Loneliness is just seeking external validation, and you need to learn to be with yourself. And I think a lot of guys, they love this, they understand it, but they just can't get past not having someone in their life, regardless of how damaging that person might be in their life. And so they run back to the plantation. Others that really get this are able to pick off where they left. They're able to put the past in the back, and they're ready to do something. And they live these principles by saying, you know what? I know what I'm going to get if I go back. There's no such thing as a return on investment in marriage or these long-term baloney relationships or cohabitating. It's just not worth it. So, so that's my thoughts. I mean, a lot of guys keep talking about, you know, especially going back to this traditional way of living back 100 years ago. It's just the programming's too deep. It's not, you know, it's not a viable way anymore.
No, it's done, and they don't want to accept it, right?
Right, right, absolutely. Well, this is we got a couple chats here. I don't know if you know about 5 Years of Freedom, and I mentioned this earlier. I found MGTOW by searching "Why is my girlfriend not affectionate?" Most of these guys that come and find out and stumble across these channels are seeking ways to get their lady to love them or to not leave them, and then they fall into this trap. So, as Hammerhand once said, we do not recruit to the red pill or MGTOW. It's very difficult to talk to a friend or a family member that's blue pill and trying to show them the way. I tried that years ago. It didn't work with a couple buddies going through divorces. And you just have to be ready to listen to this. And then when you begin to understand it, you can go through those 4 waves of MGTOW, right? That purple wave, second, third, fourth. But yeah, this has been good.
Well, I mean, that's one of the reasons I went my own way. I realized, I need advice on dating because, it was 2013. I was just gotten out of a 10-year-long relationship. And I was like, okay, I can't afford to keep making the same mistake because I'd been with somebody for 5 years. Then I made with somebody for 10 years and I picked the wrong people. So I was like, okay, I've got to find out what I'm doing wrong here. And then I discovered Stardust and it was like, oh, this guy's got good advice. And it's like, wait a minute. This isn't advice on who I should be dating and how I should be dating. This is advice on I shouldn't be dating at all. So, and he made a case and I realized this is a good case.
Right.
And that's what got me, that's what kind of red pilled me. So, but a lot of guys, yeah, you're right. They're looking for that information on how to better their relationship. And, a lot of the time they stumble into the PUA pickup roach community. Yeah. And, a lot of them kind of get trapped there and then they pay for ridiculously overpriced courses and $5,000 counseling. It's just an insane cash grab, right? So you get, the Rollo Tomasis and the Mark Anthonys of the world, exploiting men because of that.
I am just fathomed by these PUA guys that are selling these courses and guys that are buying it. I mean, that's just to me number one, you get all this information for free if you want to go that route. But there's a lot of hypocrisy in that world. There's a lot of grift, and it's disturbing that some of these folks can take these incel type guys that have no game and sell them on the idea that they can be chavs. Crazy.
Well, look, the moment they demonetized MGTOW and made it difficult to produce content, they opened the door for the PUA community.
Sure.
Because the PUA community is not attacked on the same level. Because the thing is, they give women validation, they give women money, resources, attention. So of course they're not going to be attacked. We're the only ones that say screw it, we're leaving. But the thing is, now it's only going to accelerate, right? So you're going to see women, you saw that article a few days ago. They said, 60% of men under the age of 30 are single. Well, that's not sustainable. And then, 30% of women under 30 are not single.
Right.
So, 30% of women under 30 are single. So it's what's going on? So it's either women dating older men or, 2 women dating 1 man, then they don't really know about it or just sleeping around or whatever. So we're getting into the situation where, this society is becoming extremely dysfunctional. And, once what happens in 10 years when 70 or 80% or 90% of men under the age of 30 are single?
Right.
What then? How are these women going to get attention?
Right.
They're going to need their attention. And remember, AI is only going to go so far.
Right.
A woman needs another human male there to basically torment for her amusement. And if the men walk away, women are not going to have that psychological release valve.
Sure.
So this is going to get really interesting.
I have 2 boys. He'll be 22 and 18 this year. And it's interesting to see what they're dealing with versus what I dealt with in the same ages. And you mentioned that 60% of males are single today. Where that's going, and he did a video on this as well. The whole transformer movement, I believe that a lot of these kids, the way it's being programmed right now. A lot of these single boys are going to be going the route of the Transformers.
Absolutely. Well, look, I just did an interview. I haven't released it yet with two transmaxers. So,
Interesting.
so one is Cat the Vat, and they let's I have to get the correct pronouns because I've been grilled in the interview about it, which you'll hear. Um, you know, like they basically did this before they realized it was a thing. And
Right.
then another one is Tina. And Tina, I hope that's the correct pronoun, uh basically did it to shut down the sex drive they had, right? So like she wanted to shut down her sex drive, and so she like went through this like phase where she talked about different like medication, and she realized the only way to do it was to basically take female hormones, but she couldn't just get them in Germany, so she had to actually go and like fake gender dysphoria and trick the doctors into giving her the medication that she needed, right? So like this is and then she was saying, oh, I'd go to work and I'd get all these job offers and I got my own bathroom and people were so nice to me and I got all this attention. And yeah, like I agree with you. Like this is the direction, let's say 20%, 10, 20, 30% of males are going to go in,
Mm-hmm.
right? Especially the ones that look more feminine. And
Mm-hmm.
then on top of that, like, okay, right now, the most alarming thing I've heard in the last month is testosterone levels dropping. So
Yes.
testosterone levels from 2000 have dropped 2.64% a year on average globally. So we're looking at a situation where, like they said, 20-year-old male has the testosterone like of a 65-year-old male. What happens when that 20-year-old male turns 40? He's going to have the testosterone like of an 80 or 90-year-old male. So
Mm-hmm.
so with the lack of testosterone, men are not going to go into the more masculine jobs, traits, what be it, right? And so society is going to have this huge mismatch between the skills that are needed to keep the lights going on and on the skills to just like go online and type a report, which will basically be replaced by Chat GPT anyway.
Yes.
So we're heading for a world of pain. Like this is not like I'm just not liking this,
I mean, even in the next 5 years, and you mentioned, you hit it on the head, the soy society that we live in now, the amount of testosterone that's been decreased. I mean, who's going to do the heavy lifting in life? And I told my boys before they figured out what they wanted to do, go into one of the trades, because these soy boys cannot be a plumber. There's still going to be sewers, still going to be needed, HVAC, all the heavy lifting trades. These guys are going to make a shit ton of money in the future. If anybody's listening, think about that, because these boys cannot lift it. They cannot go the distance anymore. They have been
but these jobs are not high status, right? So you're getting the situation where these jobs will pay you well, but they're not going to get you women because women don't want those guys,
right.
right? So women are saying, there's women who are like making 60,000 a year as lawyers, complaining about their husband that's making $200,000 a year as a plumber, and
Right.
they feel like better than him. They feel like they have higher status than he does,
Right.
right? They don't see it as just money. They see it as, the status that comes with their position and authority. So, like a lot of these guys, yeah, you tell young guys, oh, become a plumber. And then they're like, I'm a plumber, I'm 25. There are no girls. Where are the girls? Right. So why did they do it? Right. Like, what did they do it for themselves? Did they do it to possibly get laid? Like why did they do it? And then they realize it's not as fulfilling, cleaning pipes all day, in somebody's house as opposed to cleaning a woman's pipes. So
Right. Right. No, you're absolutely right. I mean, we are headed, the next 5 years is going to be quite interesting with everything happening in the world, how technology has just gone so absolutely crazy. The delusion has inflated a millionfold. Clown world we live in, clown face. It's interesting to see where we'll be in the next 5 years versus where we were 5 years ago.
well, it's interesting, but it's also scary because I don't know if you're like, are you in the States or in Canada?
States.
Okay, so you're like, if you're paying attention to interest rates, I was talking to my dad a few days ago, and he was saying, back in the 80s, I was paying 12% interest, right? And I'm like, but houses were like $150,000. Now, like I just looked at the latest interest rates from, CIBC and Scotiabank, two big Canadian banks, and interest rates are now between, in some cases, 8 to 10%,
Jeez.
right? But houses are not 150,000, right? The houses are 1.25 million. So you're looking at like almost, eightfold increase in price, but salary is only maybe doubled, like from 25,000 in the 80s to like 50, 60,000 now. And so we're looking at like a financial crisis coming up very quickly. And I mean, in a lot of ways, that's going to make life a lot tougher for a lot of people. But in other ways, it's going to, it's basically going to make life better, because when you got that, what do they say, like hard times make strong men. So maybe it's going to force people to man up. I don't know. Like, so we're just heading in a very interesting period of time.
Oh, 100%. What are your thoughts on what would you say to a guy that just finding out about this and just keeps returning back to the fantasy of relationships and not living the reality? What would you say to them?
No, look, eventually you will go back to relationships a few times once you discover the red pill, but you have to go through what I call the red pill rage 2.0.
Right.
So there's knowing, and then there's accepting, and accepting on a deeper level in terms of, your subconscious. So like, it's like that cheesy line from the Matrix where it's like, Morpheus says, there's a difference between knowing the path and walking the path.
Correct.
Right. And it's true, because like once you take that first red pill, like you know the path, right? You see the path forward is to go your own way. But to walk that path is more difficult, because you have to kind of break down your subconscious desires, and you have to get your subconscious and your conscious on the same page, so that when you see, a woman that you're attracted to and you're like, ooh, that's really good, and your conscious is like, well, look at all the bad things that are going to happen, but your subconscious is saying, ooh, but good, but I want to get involved there. And so there's this internal conflict. And once the two of those things are on the same page, then the internal conflict is gone. Then, you look at the woman, you're like, this is going to be bad news. And the subconscious is like, you're absolutely right. Let's get out of here.
Right.
Right. So that's where you want to get to.
I'm a huge believer in acceptance. If you cannot accept where you're at in life, your brain will constantly go to lengths to fix what you won't accept. That's why a lot of guys will continue. And it's the same with me. Back when I first started learning about this, going through a divorce with 3 kids, it was hard to accept it at first. And so without accepting where I was, without accepting the fact that my ex-wife divorced me, I wouldn't have moved on. And acceptance is key, which aligns typically what you're saying, the subconscious to the conscious, right? And if you only have the conscious mind thinking one way, but your subconscious is thinking different, you're going to run back to that plantation.
Yeah, look, it's fine. Like it's going to happen. You have to go back a few times and get burned for that subconscious to finally figure it out.
Right.
And then once the subconscious figures it out, like, when you've taken the purple pill, when you're kind of in between the red pill and the blue pill, and you're dating, and you start to understand female nature and see it right there in front of you, and see how she's trying to maneuver you into, what she wants in life. You can see her face. You can see the fact that, you're falling in love with her, but she's not in the same, like falling in love in the same way that you fell in love with her. And then you start to see the manipulation and the raw, like she's trying to like, put you in a specific box, and you can see it, and you can see her thinking about how she's going to do this and how she's going to do that. And once you start to see that, you can't unsee that.
Right. Right. It takes a while. I mean, it takes a while to really have this set in, and we're going to stumble. I think 5 years of freedom, before he started doing this, he got out of a divorce and then got engaged to another gal, and simped for, I don't know, 15 months or so some amount of time, and then got to the point where he realized it sunk in finally, and now he's creating content. So No, this has been a good discussion so far, especially regarding female nature. I've always said female nature, once you understand it, is a superpower, and you can navigate life accordingly. I'm a huge believer. I don't hate women. I got a mother, three sisters, a daughter, an ex-wife, neighbors, and so forth. I just want to understand them so I never have to deal with those risky situations ever again. And they're a lot riskier now, especially going to the gym and being videotaped, right? By you're now the creepy guy, you're being false alligatored. It's extremely risky today, guys. I've always said, Sandman, that 98% of women are definitely not recommended in this world. I do give a 1 to 2% that there are decent women out there, but again, finding those are like extremely rare.
Well, look, like the so-called decent women, because they still hold on to some of their traditional values, will probably be in their, 50s, 60s, 70s right now, right? So you're gonna see these older women. Now, here's what I think is gonna happen. So imagine you take technology, you put on, your Oculus Rift, or you put on, the like augmented reality glasses, and then you can look at a 60-year-old woman and it'll project in real time completely from head to toe a 20-year-old woman onto her body.
Sure.
So you're going to start to see these weird situations where like, like she's going to look at you and she's going to see Chad with like, Adonis muscles, and you're going to look down at her, you're going to see this like perfect 20-year-old. If you take off those augmented reality glasses, it's going to look like a fucking freak show, right? This is where we're heading. This is where we're heading probably in the next 5 to 10 years, because it's just going to be about having a warm body in your bed. And eventually, it'll be two dudes and they'll just put on the glasses and they'll see two hot babes in front of themselves, and then this is all these weird things are about to start happening, and no one is really understanding how it's going to make things even more dysfunctional, because we have dysfunction and we're trying to fix this dysfunction using technology, but the technology is fundamentally going to make things even more dysfunctional, right?
Not only dysfunctional but delusional. I mean, everywhere I go, watching just even the interactions with men and women, and seeing what women have done to themselves, and follow this Kardashian nightmare of massive amounts of makeup, or blue knots in their hair, or fish tackle in their face. It's just tattoos everywhere. Dysfunction and delusion.
Yeah, no, like, look, what was really interesting, if you watch the videos that show you, like how technology is actually like replacing, doing the whole teen filter on TikTok, you see these women's hands and they're covered in tattoos, and I'm like, but you're like 50 years old. Why are you covered in tattoos? And a few weeks ago, I went on Tinder just to kind of see what's going on, and I'm seeing 40 and 50-year-old women covered in tattoos.
Yep.
And not even like a few tattoos here, like their necks and their hands, and I'm just like, what is going on? Like, this is just, like you're making yourself, like I put out a video, that last memes of the week, the number 4, where it was like, become unfuckable. That's what they're doing. Like, they're literally turning themselves into freaks.
Yeah. And the transparency of the attention, I was just in Mexico, just watching women taking selfies in front of hundreds of people. I mean, they don't really. The transparency of the delusion is front row and center, right? Up front. So,
what were they? Where were they taking their selfies? Where were they?
oh, some were on the beach, some were right in the middle by a pool, with selfie sticks. I mean, I was in Guatemala, same thing, watching women in Guatemala take pictures in front of hundreds of people, just doing their fish lip poses and so forth. I mean, again, dysfunction and delusion is where we live today. So,
well, somebody was telling me, they said, what's going to happen is you're going to get women taking selfies, 60-year-old women taking selfies on the beach, or video clips, putting on the teen filter,
yep.
and, filtering their whole body so they look like they're 20.
Yep.
And then they're going to go online, putting it there, trying to get attention from like 20 or 30-year-old guys. But it won't be, it'll just be bots that'll be giving them attention. But that'll be enough to kind of keep the delusion going.
It's like, let me look at Madonna, right? What she's done.
Oh God.
If
Like
that,
she should have just waited. Like soon, like eventually it'll get to the point where people will just be able to put on like I said, AR glasses. We're gonna start literally curating our own reality.
I
You
think,
know,
yeah, it's like that movie Surrogates with Bruce Willis. We're
yeah,
all
no, this is I was talking about this in a video yesterday that I was recording. So yeah, the surrogates thing, except it's gonna be like surrogates, except instead of having an android that walks down the street that looks like the younger version of yourself, it's going to be you're only going to present yourself digitally online um because like in that beautiful form. So like if you go outside as the real you, people will see how hideous you are and you'll lose all your attention and people will like expose you for the 70-year-old like cat mom that you are. So there's gonna be a whole class of women that never leave the house beyond the age of 50, have everything delivered as to not risk being exposed for the fraud that they are, because they're not really 20 or 30 years old, because the technology is making them look that way online. So when you go online, you won't be able to tell, is it a 20-year-old woman, a 70-year-old woman? They'll
right,
all look like they're 20 years old
right,
because the technology will make all of them look perfect. And the
right.
ones that are 20 and getting all the attention now are going to have to compete with the 70-year-olds.
Absolutely.
And not only that, they're going to have to compete with males that are going to transmax, that are also going to be like, 30, 40-year-old guy is going to be competing for the attention that 20-year-old women get. So all of a sudden, like the competition to those younger women in their like early 20s is going to like go up like 20 or 30 fold, because everyone, male and female, old and young, is going to start competing for that attention.
Sure, sure. Transmaxing was that, I watched your video on transmaxing. That is crazy what some of these guys are going to. Um,
Well, look, I see. Okay, so like you were talking about the history of the manosphere, and then you saw back in 2014, 15, you saw the True Force Loneliness guys,
yeah,
and they're basically the precursor to the incel community. And they were incels, but here's the thing: if you go back and you watch their videos, you'll notice that they have testosterone, that they're like aggravated, they're energetic, they're unapologetic. And then if you go to the incel community in the last like 5 years, they're kind of soft spoken, they're not like angry, they don't have very much masculinity compared to those older guys.
right.
So that was another community. Then you had the Sigma community. I thought about getting involved in the whole Sigma community. People were like, "Come on, you said you were going to make Sigma content." And I'm like, "Yeah, but it's just like I'm Sigma male, but I don't think there's really all that much to say. At this point, it's just like rehashing the same Patrick Bateman meme over and over again." And
Right.
I'm tired of that, right? Like, yes, the movie came out 25 years ago. I saw it in the theater. I laughed at the dark humor. I thought it was great. But can't we make something else now? Like, can't we like do something? And but the problem is, the shift that's happened in testosterone in the last 10 to 15, 20 years has actually reduced the creativity in our society, because testosterone is required for men to do masculine things, to take risks. And if our society can't take risks in new content, and if men's testosterone levels drop, then we become nothing but like chameleons, the way women do things.
Sure.
So that's why it's like all it is rehashing out there in Hollywood and the entertainment industry, because I think that the men who create these things are, turning to soy really quickly.
Oh, the amount of testosterone today versus 20 years ago is wow, just so different. What do
Like
you,
like it's easy to boost your testosterone. Like if you're overweight or obese, like you just lose the weight, your testosterone level will jump 30%.
right?
So your health and your motivation will go up just because of, doing that. But what is it, by 2030, like 60% of like adults will be obese or morbidly obese
Hmm?
in the United States. So the people are consuming more food than ever, and they're not losing the weight, and that's just going to continue to escalate and get worse. Especially like I'm looking at all these younger guys. I'll go to like a grocery store up here in Canada. I'll see guys 40 and above. They look like a normal healthy weight, maybe 25 to 26, 7 BMI. They're a little overweight, but they're not like obese. And
Right.
then you look at the younger guys under 30 and you're just like, oh my God, half of them are obese. Like, what is this? Like, what's going on?
Sure.
Anyway, go ahead.
Now I was thinking, yeah, the testosterone. Women are becoming more masculine. Men are becoming more effeminate. I was at the gym, and I'm seeing, when I go to the gym, I see women they're on steroids now. There's no way they can get that big, and it's becoming more and more prevalent. Seeing some of these women bodybuilders, especially online, they want to be men, and men are turning into women. That's what they want, right? I guess.
Yeah, it's pretty obvious to see that's happening. Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting to see where we're going, and it's tough because the programming of the young men today. I mean, I see it in my boys. They do not like strong boys today. They like weak boys, and we're on a path to destruction. That's probably, I mean, look who we have for our president. Look who your prime minister is. Individuals, and guess where our societies are? Woke as hell.
Yeah, but you have to understand, this is not just a North American phenomenon. This is happening globally. The testosterone levels, like I said, are falling in Africa, sub-Saharan Africa. So like, you're going to start to see like fairy drag maxing queens in the middle of sub-Saharan Africa, right? Like, this is just not, again, this is not sustainable,
No.
So like, and I think some of it has to do with, a lot of guys can't even procreate because their sperm counts are falling so low. So in a way, you're going to have to go to the government and the government healthcare system to reproduce, because your sperm count will be so low that they won't be able to you won't be able to inseminate naturally. You'll have to pay medicine to do it for you. And that way they can control who reproduces and who doesn't.
Right. I watched a video on Elon Musk who talked about Japan's birth rates and where they'll be in 40 years, based on where their birth rates are today. They might not be Japan in 40 years.
No, they'll be Japan. They'll be Japan. It's obviously the population. I think it's, what is it, like 124, 125 million right now. It'll probably drop to let's say by 2100, it's probably going to end up being, I don't know, like 60 to 80 million. It's going to fall. But the Japanese are not importing people from the third world. So
Right.
Their culture is still going to remain Japanese, if you can even call it that. I mean, it's feminizing so rapidly, right? So, and the same thing goes for South Korea. You get like you can see it in the type of male archetype and the type of male that's promoted by the media. China has been fighting back against these like pretty sissy boys, right? Because you see them in, they've got the funky hair, they look all feminized. There's like a pop group in South Korea that just got like, I think it's BTS, I can't remember. I can't remember the name of the band group, but they got like a 1.6 billion views on a video they just put out. So, like they're doing really, really well. They just got like a Lego set made out of them, and they're all extremely feminized, right? And you're wondering, like, why is this feminine stereotype being pushed? And you're like, it's not being pushed. It's, if you look at, women in their early 20s, what is it, like 40% of women in their early to mid 20s are on the pill. So what's happening is, when you're on the pill as a woman, you're attracted to a different type of male. You're not attracted to the ultra masculine man. You're attracted to the more feminine man.
Mm-hmm.
So the more feminine males, the pretty boys, are going to get more action. So you're going to see guys realizing, well, wait a minute. Do I want to go to the gym and work out, or would I rather go and put on makeup and do skincare and get like a funky hairdo and dress all stylish? They're more likely to do that because they're going to realize they're going to get more action if they do that instead.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. What are your thoughts, Sandman, on this being an engineered demise over the last 80 years?
Well, that's a big thing. Like, are you talking about birth rates? Are you talking about, emasculation of males, or like what are you talking about specifically?
Feminism, the pill coming out, no fault divorce in 1969, the weakening of society through technology. Do you think that there's any truth to that being a controlled environment from the powers that be, the Illuminati 80 years ago?
Look, people want more control and power over their life, right? So like, if back in the 60s, it was like if you had sex, there's a good chance you get her pregnant, and then your life would pretty much, you have to become the provider protector, and society would have to you'd have to take your role, right? And you do it in your early 20s. People wanted freedom, right? They wanted to like live their life. They wanted to be able to have tons of sex and not have to pay the consequences for it. They want to be able to get pregnant and not have to pay the consequences for it. Like women don't generally enjoy taking accountability. Like it's like getting them to take accountability is like getting them to go to the dentist. It's difficult, right? So because of that, um, just giving women technology that takes away their accountability is a good thing for them, because they see it as like a positive. It's freedom. So TikTok's teen filter is now taking accountability for women because they know they can keep getting attention well into their like autumn years. So it's like a lot of the women that were looking at that filter and seeing the younger version of themselves, they start crying because they knew what they lost.
Right.
But I think that some of those women are soon going to realize, well, wait a minute. It doesn't have to, like, sure, it's sad and it's heartbreaking that I don't look like that anymore, but I look like that on the internet,
Right.
and I can take advantage of that. And I can get all the attention and nostalgia from all these young guys giving me attention. It's going to get to the point where you're going to start to see like, a 60-year-old man and a 60-year-old woman online, and neither of them are going to know that they're, like 60. They're both going to look 20, and they're going to have a conversation with each other.
Yeah, it's gone nuts. Clown world for sure.
Well, look, there's an episode of Dark Mirror where these two women, they have this like lesbian relationship in this virtual world. And in the virtual world, they both look like they're 25. But in the real world, one of them is like completely immobile in a bed, and she's in a vegetative state pretty much. And the other one is, dying of cancer, and she's in her 80s. So, like we're going to start to have different types of relations based on technology.
Right.
You're going to fall in love with someone that doesn't exist. Right. So, and they're going to fall in love with somebody that, well, if they can fall in love with you, that doesn't exist either. And you're
Right.
just going to have this like online virtual romance, because
Right.
if you both saw what you really looked like, and then you could use the AR glasses and all that kind of stuff. And so it's going to create, it's going to create this world where people are going to be very afraid of putting their image and their voice out there. So for example, if people don't know what you look like, then they can't create like an image of you and, de-age you and turn you into whatever they want. This is one of the reasons I've been very careful to kind of keep my image off the internet. Like I've scrubbed my image off in the last, 5 to 10 years because of the SANDMAN stuff, but also because I knew this was coming. I knew that at some point they would be able to like de-age you and, create a virtual version of you. So, anyway, go ahead.
Yeah, no, it gives me, I was thinking about that as well. Where did you come up with the name Sandman?
It was just kind of the SANDMAN comics, because in the SANDMAN comics, SANDMAN has the other, like he's basically called Morpheus as well.
Okay.
And I kind of saw myself as more of like a Morpheus character in all of this like red pill stuff. Like I was the guy who gives people the pill.
Right.
So that's just kind of where I came up with the name. It's nothing too complicated.
It's definitely easy to remember. Any last? I know we're coming up on the hour, and I like to keep these collabs short. I mean, some folks can go hours and hours. It's just I need to stand up. But what would you tell a guy today that's just what would be your piece of advice to men today?
In terms of
If they're stumbling across some of this content and they're just not sure, and and they want to believe the fantasy, not the reality. What would you say?
Well, they're going to have to believe the fantasy for a while. First, they're going to, like I said, they're going to learn about the reality. They're going to be in denial, right? That's one of the stages of grief, and eventually they will reach acceptance if if they if they do the work, and then they have to stay in the acceptance phase, which is kind of also difficult because you can easily fall back on your old ways.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to be eternally vigilant, right? You have to kind of be aware that at any moment, like your sexual frustration and your loneliness might start coming out, and then you could like fall back into the trap.
Definitely. Well, this has been good. I mean, we've got some good comments in here. Nothing that really, I think we've covered most of these comments, these topics through the comments, but no, appreciate you definitely making the content that you do. I've always enjoyed the 10 to 12 minute snippets that you do. I think you get quite a bit of that message out quickly. You do filter your voice, and that was always a unique attribute when I was listening to you. How you would, obviously your videos are filtered. So, but anyhow,
what I might be doing is with the technology to just change my voice. I could take my this voice that I'm speaking in right now, and I could just take my script, put it into that website, and it'll just spit out, my words, my script in this voice. So I might actually start doing that to see if there's actually any more like interest in like my content. I don't know. We'll see what happens. But at this point, I don't think so. I think that there's just way too much competition in the manosphere. And like I said, when I got in, there was little to no competition. So if guys want to succeed in life, what they want to do is they want to find a market that's underutilized, that people want stuff in, but there's not enough people producing the content or whatever it is. It could be widgets or whatever. And then that's when you go in and then you make it efficient, and then you make a business model out of it. And then just be aware that if you do that effectively, other people are going to see what you did and how you simplified the process, and then they're going to copy you and they're going to come in. So anyway, that's my suggestion.
And competition right now with so much manosphere is a good thing as well. Not a great thing when it comes to obviously monetization and so forth. But I think, a lot of guys are like, I don't know where to go. There's a stream 3 times a day. There's somebody streaming right now in the manosphere that you can, be part of and participate
in. It's not even that it's just a stream. There's like you go to Hammerhand or you go to Undead Chronics page, and you've got shorts. You've got the videos that are 10 or 15 minutes. Then you also got the streams. So like literally throwing in multiple types of content on a daily basis. And then you go to like just Pearly Things, and it's like 10 videos a day, right? Like we're getting to the point where, like this is just insane. Like you can't consume all this content. And the thing is, like, I'm giving you like a rundown of all of the stuff that I've kind of been working on in the last week, right? So I'm kind of giving you like a breakdown of the most interesting topics and thoughts that I've had for the week. And I'm looking for formats that are different than everybody else's. So for example, like that memes of the week thing, people like that, right? Because that's different. Nobody else is doing that. So, like I would be up to doing like one of these chats for an hour once every like week, and just kind of recapping all the stuff I learned in a week, because that'll actually get quite a bit of attention. And I mean, you're a pretty good host. You're asking me questions that are getting me to go on some like good tangents.
I'm just trying to peer into that brain of yours, Sandman, and see how you think. But no, we figure it out. Do you listen to? Do you have any content creators that you listen to right now, or do you just kind of pick and choose?
And like in the manosphere, or just in general?
Both.
I mean, I listen to a lot of like podcasts, like not Joe Rogan anymore. There's that, I can't remember what he's got this like bluish background. He's got an English accent, and I don't know, he's got about 500,000 subscribers. I can't remember his channel name, but yeah, he's interesting guests. I listen to stuff like that. But in terms of manosphere content, I'll occasionally listen to Stardust because he still has good insight compared to everybody else. But a lot of the content creators that were good are starting to kind of just rehash old things, or they're just doing current events. And it's sad because it's like, they're not synthesizing these ideas. They're just kind of repeating them and they're parroting them.
Right.
And, they're not saying, like I took all these 4 technologies and I kind of merged them all together and thought like, okay, where does this go? Like not where we are and like how this is affecting women today, but, or like shortly in a year or two, but how this is going to affect the relationships 5, 10, 15 years down the road.
Mhm.
And I think that there's this lack of ability for people to see too far into the future. I think people are kind of afraid to have their own opinions. I think one of the things that I learned, back in my early 30s, I was asked by a woman, like, she's like, it's great that you can regurgitate all this information about all these different talking points, but what do you think? And then I was like, I'm allowed to have an opinion? Like, that's interesting. Right. So you have to kind of get to this point where you're just not repeating what other people are saying. You're actually starting to think for yourself.
No, and I think, and yeah, absolutely. There were content creators that I listened to 4 years ago that I can't listen to anymore just because, again, they've rehashed everything. They're very monetized. They're focusing on things that at one point they didn't focus on. I can tell you there's a Canadian content creator, Rich Cooper. Back
Oh my God. Anyway, go ahead. Yeah.
when he first started, he had some decent videos, right? But his message morphed and it changed and it got, some people would say there was hypocrisy involved. But, in the very beginning, he had a couple decent videos that, struck home with me. But as I saw what happened and, how his channel progressed to a different audience and now what he does today. But, I don't subscribe to him. A couple others as well that I really had great value. They were a lot more humble. And it's that the audience have changed. They've morphed into, chasing clout and so forth. But
Yeah. So you're telling me you're not paying him $5,000 for an hour of coaching?
well, again, funny how much they. What does he charge? Like 1,200, $3,000 an hour. It's like, what does he know more about life than I do, right? And so a lot of these folks, they see a lot of subscribers behind their names, and they're like, "Man, he must be doing something right." No, the algorithm did something right.
Look, they like him because he's promoting the idea that men should improve themselves and that they should chase women and they should look for status. And, so he's pretty much projecting what women want, right? It's well, at his age or whatever. So that's what's happening. He's basically promoting an idealized male that society wants because
Mhm.
so he's doing what they want. He's behaving the way they want. He's giving women attention. He's telling guys to give women attention. So he's a-okay and he must be allowed to continue.
Right.
But anyone who's telling men to just walk away and the casino is broken and you're going to lose all your money. Like, no, we got to keep the casino going, right? The casino au couche has to continue. And if we don't keep it going, then women are going to be sad and lonely and whatever, but they already are.
Right.
So he's just promoting like male slavery at this point. That's
Abs-
it.
Absolutely. And most of these clout chasing creators are, that's what they're pushing. Have you been invited to speak at any convention?
There were a couple that they kind of wanted me to come to. Like, this is years ago, but I didn't like. The most interesting one was they wanted me to go talk to the people from Match.com and Tinder and like figure out where the future of the dating market was. They wanted me to come down to some Miami conference, but this is like maybe 5 years ago now, because they really wanted to know, what was going to happen in the dating market, right? And the funny thing is, they figured it out. They basically gave away a lot of gold memberships for free to Chads onto their platforms, and that attracted a lot of women to the platform. And by attracting those women there, it attracted a lot of men that paid, right? So the men that pay for Tinder are there because there are women there. But
Yeah.
the women that are there because there's a Chad that gets free Tinder gold and he can basically have his pick of the litter, right? He can pick whatever woman he wants. So to get the bulk of the male paying clients, they have to give away a bunch of male accounts.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of their strategy that they went in. Like, I mean, I wouldn't have given them that advice, but like they did a good job with that. Like they figured out how that works. And like, like the whole gym thing, like I put out a video about it. And I said, like, if you're a gym, what you want to do is you want to give out accounts, free gym memberships to the hottest of men. You find guys that are like super attractive, and then you say, we want you at our gym. We're going to give you every Thursday between, 5 and 10, you have free gym membership access hours. Like, and you can come in and use that gym anytime you want between that, let's say Thursdays, you can come in and use the gym. So what that's going to do is it's going to attract the attractive women. They're going to be like, oh, that hot guy shows up every Thursday. Right. So they'll go there, and he's not going to be a creep. He's just going to be a guy they are actually attracted to. And then on Wednesday, you find another guy, or you find like 5 guys and you give them each a different day for free. And then what that's going to do is it's going to start filling up the gym with women that are going to go there seeking out that 1% of really super attractive guys. And then what's going to happen is guys are going to go to that gym and they're going to say, oh my God, there's all these hot women at this gym. But they're not realizing that the women are only there because of that one super hot guy that's gotten the free pass.
Right.
And so they'll all pay for the gym memberships to go there and see, the women that are there for that one guy. So I think that's kind of how you have to start exploiting the sexual marketplace. If you're gonna make money off of men, that's just one way to do it, right? Like you basically have to set the bait. But to set the bait of the hot women, you have to have the hot guys. This formula could probably work with nightclubs too, right? Like you get 10 or 20 super attractive guys, you put them in a nightclub. Right. And then all of a sudden there's going to be like 200 hot women. And then the guys that you want to go in there, you're like, no, you got to pay like $30, $40 cover charge to get in here.
Right.
But the women and those guys, the hot guys, get in for free. And then it's just the orbiting beta male supply that's paying for drinks and trying to get women's attention is on the outside.
That seems like a good business plan moving forward.
Well, I'm not going to do it. I'm just like, I'm not that fucking cruel, and I don't want men to suffer, but I'm saying that that's what a lot of like businesses are doing. That's what they're kind of doing. Right. So, look, if you wanted to make a gym exclusive, you could have, like say you gave out, 50 memberships to super hot guys, and then you charge the women to go there. Right. And the women would basically go there and they would be the ones that paid. And then the guys that the betas and the simps that tried to go in there, you could hire women that would call them creepy and get them kicked out. Right. So that way you're creating this like situation where like the ordinary guys will not go there because they'll be discouraged. Women will, you could hire a woman to go around like, were you looking at me? And like, no, it's like, you were looking at me. I'm going to go talk to the manager. Right. And she's already got a scheme going on with the manager because she's working there technically. And then the manager's like, well, look, like we can't let you continue here because you're just looking at all the women. So that way, you're not what's the word? You're not discriminating or, but you're discouraging the men that you don't want to be there to leave politely or unpolitely through the door. And you're only encouraging the women to stay there to chase the chats. And you're building a business model around that.
Right. It's probably working somewhere in New York or Miami, right?
It has to be. Like somebody must have figured, like someone like Andrew Tate figured this out a long time ago. And he's like probably opening up a chain of gyms out there, and he's just kind of messing around with the formula.
Yeah. One last question. You remember when Big John did the CNN interview?
Yeah, he demonetized all of us. He fucking ruined things. Like he's an idiot. He should not have gone on television.
Yeah, I don't know if that was the smartest move. Were you approached to do that with that?
I was approached by Dr. Phil. Who else was I approached by? I was approached by some European I wasn't approached by CNN, but I was approached by a few other networks.
What Dr. Phil want with you?
Wanted to fly me down and have an interview.
Interesting.
Like the way they did with Rollo Tomasi, right?
Yeah.
But, you know, Rollo Tomasi, he composed himself well. He had good talking points. He wasn't, you know, he wasn't chaotic and he wasn't emotional. And, you know, it's, you know, like, look what happened with Roosh V. He went down there and he completely blew, like, he lost it on TV and he basically messed up. And then there was Dick Masterson. He did a great job, like, you know, like throwing like irony and humor into the whole thing. And, you know, like, but he was hit for him. It was an act. You could tell it was an act, right? So he was over the top on purpose. So there are ways to kind of get away with it. Like, either you go completely, you know, cold and irrational, and, you know, you make sense and you're nice to the crowd, or you basically just become so like insanely misogynistic that it's an act, and it's obviously an act to everybody.
Right.
Like Jerry Springer or like serious like content. That's the only way you can get away with it. Like, you can't be like a Roosh V. He was not prepared. He couldn't deal with the talking points in the audience. And I mean, I did an audio interview with those people in France. The guy who was interviewing me, like, it was just a pod, like, over podcast.
Right.
He actually did a live interview with Jordan Peterson. Jordan Peterson lost it in the interview. He started yelling at him. I was like, oh my God. Like, I've never seen Jordan Peterson lose it before. And this guy actually got him to lose it. That's why he's so like that's why the French network hired him to do interviews with people. And so he wanted basically to push my buttons to lose it too. Mind you, like, it was a stressful interview. He was asking me like, you know, things that were pushing my buttons, but I just wouldn't like flinch. I just, like, I either made it funny or I just gave him back like the complete opposite answer of what he wanted.
No, it's yeah, I could see them doing that. I saw the Jordan Peterson interview with the feminist. What was she? What, from some?
Are you talking about the one from the UK, the one where it's like, where he's like, gotcha, with that one, right?
Yeah, it was like an hour long. They're sitting on,
Yeah.
and just watching that should have awakened so many guys. That was a good interview with him.
Yeah, that got millions of views. That woke up a lot of guys.
Yeah, yeah, just how they, you know, the argument on that side of what she was trying to make just was so delusional and dysfunctional. He destroyed her in every part of that interview, and he did it calmly.
Yeah, but that's the thing I'm saying. Like, if that interview, he did things calmly, the interview where he lost it, like, can you imagine what, like, the amount of manipulation, psychological manipulation, the guy interviewing him had to do to get him to lose it? And
Right.
I went through it. I went through this guy's questions, and like, literally a few times I was like I'm doing the interview. I'm like squeezing my desk. I'm like, oh, I gotta kill this guy, right? Like, but I'm just like, keep it cool, right? And just, that's it. Because this is what these people do. They want to push your buttons. They want to discredit you. They want to, like, ruin your reputation. Kathy Newman, that was the interview with Jordan Peterson. Yeah, she was trying to discredit him and ruin him. And she thought she had actually won that and posted it thinking that she'd won. And then everyone's like turned on her.
Right.
Right. So that's the only reason that even got posted, because she thought she won the argument.
Right. Now, it was a great dismantling of that retarded brain of hers.
But the idea was that they thought, like, the producers thought that they were the ones that had made the more valid arguments.
Mm-hmm.
And so that everyone would kind of see the truth, the rational, their version of reality. And they didn't realize that Jordan Peterson was making more truth and talking more sense. And when that happened, I'm sure they were like, oh my God, like, why is the audience turning against us? It's like, the audience isn't turning against you. You've turned the audience, like, against you. They're not turning against you. You're the one that's, like, doing this on your own.
Right.
It's like that whole line from like Star Wars episode 3, where it's like, you know, you're like, you're turning her against me. It's like, no, you've done that yourself, and you just can't see it. You can't see that you know, that people are turning against things like entertainment. Like, the entertainment industry is like, you know, why is no one going to Disney theme parks and watching our movies? Like, what's going on? These people must be misogynist. It's like, no, you're the man hater. So nobody wants to get, you know, like, have their self-esteem destroyed while they're paying you money. You know, like, that's not going to work. Like, long term, that's not going to work. You can't expect the whole, world and country to basically say, oh, yes, daddy, kick me in the dirt. Like, and here's my money. It's like at some point people walk away. They're like, I'm done with this. I can't take this abuse anymore.
Right.
It might work for a while, but eventually the abuse you get over it and you walk away.
Right. That's a whole nother topic as well.
Yeah.
But hey, Sandman, appreciate you being here. Where can they find you outside of YouTube?
I'm on like Rumble and Odyssey and BitChute and Twitter. Like I'm pretty active on Twitter. I'm posting like 20, 30 times a day now. That's probably a decent place. Like that's the only platform that I'm actually able to grow subscribers in any significant numbers now. So, like 2,000 subscribers on Twitter every month, new ones. So that's pretty good. So, the strategy is to just keep pumping out videos, post them on Twitter, off from Rumble, and then drive the Twitter traffic to Rumble and slowly grow a following like that. So that way I'm not, relying on YouTube anymore. Like I'm still going to use it, but it's continuing to dwindle. But yeah, like, so if people go Sandman MGTOW on Twitter or Sandman MGTOW on Rumble, those are the two platforms that I kind of want to grow the quickest.
Well, terrific. Appreciate again you being here and willing to do this with us. And
yeah, you're basically recording this. You're live streaming it, right?
Yep. We got
okay.
75 folks who are watching.
Okay. So yeah, what I'll probably do, if that's okay with you, is just kind of like mirror this and put it on my channel, and then just kind of like repost the link to your channel so people could kind of subscribe there.
Yeah, and I appreciate you doing this. I did this with Terrence Pop. Hammerhand and I did it before his channel got blown up a year ago. A couple others, but that there are some folks that are unwilling to do some of these interviews just because we're too small, or the audience isn't big enough, or it's what have you. So I definitely appreciate your willingness to do this with us.
Yeah, I mean, look, I did that transmaxing interview with Kat the Vat. The channel only has like a few hundred subscribers. I don't know how many subscribers does your channel have. I'm just not looking.
Almost 7,000.
Yeah, so like I don't care about like the number of subscribers. I'm not looking for more exposure.
Yeah.
I'm looking for an interesting conversation that's going to get, like, it's going to help me flesh out some of my ideas, and it's also going to help you get a little bit more traction, a little bit more views. So like, and then I usually use these interviews as like days when I'm not really not really feeling like writing anything, as filler. And sometimes people like them. Like they say, oh, you need to make these every day. And it's like, yeah, but the audience just wouldn't be there. Like people don't like they say they want it. And then I did like 3 or 4 days where I did like streaming videos, and it fell off pretty quickly. Yeah. So I just like to kind of keep it once in a while, put my main talking points, and then kind of synthesize everything together, and it works.
Awesome. Well, one last comment. Thanks, Sandman. Input is always relevant, from Philip to Sorrow.
No worries.
Appreciate you being here. Have a great weekend, and we'll look forward to your next video.
All right. Thanks.
All right. See you, brother. Well, guys, that was Sandman. Definitely appreciate everybody being in the comments section, and all of the great comments forward that we've had today, and all the moderators as well. Shout out to everybody that's been in the chat. I think, again, Sandman has a very unique recipe when he makes his videos. I think his videos are very well thought out. Almost 200,000 subscribers on YouTube, one of the heavy hitters. I remember listening to his content back when I was going through this, and as well as Big John and some of the other guys. But if you have a story to tell, put a site, put a channel up. I keep telling guys, every one of you that's in this chat has something to say. Whether you're 25 or 95, you have something to say, and you don't know who you're going to be able to help out. You don't know that one guy that's just going to stumble into YouTube. It's going to come up on his video feed, and a channel with 30 subscribers completely switched his mind frame. Some of the greatest content creators out there have some of the lowest amount of subscribers, because they're authentic. They're not seeking clout. They're not seeking all this, compensation by grift. So again, you guys have something to say. And this has been a wonderful Saturday morning. You guys go have some fun, and we'll talk to you soon. I'm out.